welcome back to the VHS Vault. You're here with Jason Roy Gaston and myself, VHS Jace. Jason, we have got a cracker to talk about tonight, but before we do that, we should ask the kind people out there if they could please do us a favor and like and subscribe and share this content. If you love us talking about old films, really means a lot to us as well. Also, please go check out Jason's Patreon. I don't have a graphic for it yet, but we'll get one soon. So, go check that out and support Jason.
How dare you?
And in his
I don't think I have a graphic for it either, so it's fine.
No, we'll have to make something. But please promote. Please join Patreon and be part of the cool gang. All right, Jace, let's get back into what we're talking about tonight. And this is a cracker. As the thumbnail says, it's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. We've seen 3 of them. We're now digging into Part 4, The Dream Master. 1988, Jason.
Well, you know, the quality can only go up as the Roman numeral increases. Isn't that how Hollywood thinks things work?
That was the theory, I think, but not quite sure with this one, mate, what they did there. This is an interesting 1988. Well, I remember this very vividly. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, he's having a drink of water while he does that.
Sorry, we're getting that delay again. So
we can record,
I was just going to say that,
this.
You know, Nightmare on Elm Street series is... Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street is interesting because it does have a very good first entry. It has a questionable second entry, but then the third entry is arguably the best one. So it's like, how do you follow up on an amazing end to a trilogy? Let's take all these characters that you love and obviously supported and kill them off in the first 10 minutes.
Okay, and this is what we're getting into. This film is almost 2 films in a way, and I think they felt burdened to continue these characters, which is really odd, and then just to kill them off seemed extremely disrespectful. I am not one of these guys who has a problem with Alien 3. But that argument that Alien 3 has is how dare you kill off Hicks and the little girl at the beginning of the film actually, for me, applies to this film. How dare you take our heroes and knock them off one by one in ridiculous, almost diminishing ways to all the work they put into that third film. And we'll be digging into this a lot, Jason, as we go through, because there's a lot to talk around that. However, I want to show you this. This is at the beginning of the film, we get this quote. When deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me, and trembling which made all my bones to shake. Considering there's
and then
no
they
other
hit us with the
Christian
Sinead O'Connor
ideology. Yeah, there's no other Christian ideology in this film, really. They throw that in there to somehow be... As soon as I saw that again, I went, oh, yeah, I didn't really notice that when I was 14. But I'm noticing that now. Already, I'm giving it a bit of a bad kind of feel straight off the bat. But like classic Turn, Jason, they start this off with some close-ups, and I like this opening. I like the opening.
It's a good opening. I will say that the Sinead O'Connor, R.I.P. by the way, the Sinead O'Connor starting the movie out was weird. Having a pop song start out a Freddy movie was weird. But honestly, the beginning of this movie is really good. Have you noticed that every single Nightmare on Elm Street movie starts off with somebody building something?
It's wonderful. Yeah. I think it's great that they adhere to it.
It is neat, yes. And they do it in the next movie too, but I'll come to that when we come to that one.
Yeah, when we get to the old Dream Child. Yeah. Now, okay,
yeah, they're building something.
It's horrible. I don't want to talk about that yet. However, look, I've got a. My biggest problem with this film, besides the ridiculous plot, and that's saying something because it is a Freddy movie, is the recasting of Patricia Arquette, who wisely decided not to return, but it's Tuesday night. I'm sorry, Jason, but she gave some of the worst line readings I've seen in any horror film. And that includes all the Friday the 13th.
It was bad.
It was really bad. She, unfortunately, wasn't up to par with the rest of the actors. And there's some solid performers in this movie. All right, I am going to back up Alice. I think Alice, the actress who played Alice, had a really tough role ahead of her. She had a really changing arc, and I thought she did quite well with what she had. I thought she was competent. I thought her brother was quite competent as well. This guy here, I thought he was kind of good. Except for this guy, he's just looks. Like, that guy, like, he had 3 brain cells, I reckon. Like,
that is the oldest high school student I have ever seen in my life. That guy's like 37. They're not even trying by this point. Yeah. And speaking of the recasting of Patricia Arquette, nobody really knows why she didn't come back. Some people say it was salary. Some people say it was quality. The consensus, though, is that she did not come back because she was actually pregnant at the time. And so she chose not to come back because, she was busy making something of her own. They did bring in Tuesday Night to play the part of I've forgotten the character's name, but they brought her. Thank you. They brought her in to play that. And unfortunately, you can tell that she was not welcome, especially by the actors who played Joey and Kincaid, because they are so cold to her. There's no warmth to them. Yeah, it's just basically they're treating her like an interloper at this point, which is not. It's undeserved, if you ask me. But I can also understand, because apparently these 2 actors thought that they were going to be in the entire movie, and whenever the script got delivered to them, they realized, oh, hey, why does my script stop at page 5?
Look,
they were a little grumpy.
Yeah, and I can understand how they would feel off about it, and I think the film, like, it really suffers from the need to drag them into it. Like, I'm watching it, right, and I'm going, okay, we've got these 3 main characters. We've had a big jump in time, mind you. It's a year later. They've now re-established themselves back into just being a normal teenager, which bothered me again conceptually, because I'm like, instead of showing the little girl doing the chalk in the beginning, maybe just show a montage of how they got from there to here, because it's such a big leap, and yeah,
that would have just made us more mad in the future when they killed them off, though.
Perhaps. Then why even have them in it? It must have been a contract.
Exactly.
Or it's got to be, right? It's just because, excuse me, when you want to talk about how bad Tuesday Night is, look at that scene that I just put up on the picture and have a listen to the dialogue being delivered by Kincaid and Joey versus Kristen, and you're going to see worlds apart. But it's not her fault why this movie doesn't work. Why this dude, it was just, they had a script and they filmed some of that script and made the rest up. I have no evidence based upon that, but it smacks of it, Jason.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because the original concept for A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was that the teens were going to use Freddy's dream world to time travel. They were going to integrate time travel into A Nightmare on Elm Street script, a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And at first I thought, well, that's ridiculous. They would have never done that. But if you watch this movie, there is time travel, because Freddy sticks Alice and chiseled jaw guy with no personality
into
a time loop at one point. And I got to thinking, I thought, quite honestly, if they had been brave enough to go with that concept, it might have failed spectacularly. But on the other hand, it might have been something cool and different they could have done with the franchise. Maybe go back in time and stop Freddy from becoming Freddy before he becomes Freddy. Maybe go back in time and interact with Lankenkamp and Nancy. Honestly,
that is such a cool concept. You could still do that today.
Absolutely.
Time traveling.
Absolutely. Go back in time.
Yeah.
Go back in time and stop part 6 from being made. The
that'd be great.
Alice
And
Cooper
5.
cameo is not a good idea.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I want to keep 7.
Stop at 3. Just stop at 3.
Yes,
But do
3.
Freddy versus Jason and New Nightmare. We can keep
No,
those.
you stop at 3, and then 10 years later, then you get to watch Final Nightmare. Then Final Nightmare becomes more profound. That's the other thing. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Let's go through the other cast of characters.
Absolutely.
My vote for the best hair ever in an 80s movie goes to this young lady, whose perm is, without doubt, epic.
Look at that.
That is amazing hair.
There's a Lopsa
Clearly
sitting on her
hair
head.
envy, so.
It is amazing, yes.
Okay, the female Urkel
Understandable.
was a bit too much for me. Female Urkel was like,
was
really?
this was this pre or post Urkel? I want to say this was pre.
Well, this is 88, and I do believe Family Matters is 87. So,
but was Urkel out yet? Because I don't think Urkel showed up until later in Family Matters, if I remember right. So I would bet this was the inspiration for Urkel.
Maybe. No, I do like her character. What I do like about that young lady is her relationship with Big Perm. Her and Big Perm are buds.
Oh, absolutely.
And I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
The good thing is they don't target the nerd, which I really appreciate in this. It's like we're moving beyond that. But yeah, you go a pretty, besides Tuesday, who I don't want to keep ripping on the entire film, you've got a really good young cast here. I think are all competent actors, can all deliver their lines quite well, which must be really frustrating because of what they have to act out, including a Karate Kid scene, which
Daniel-san. Oh, sorry, you're not Daniel-san. Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you? What you are is a setup for a scene that never happens. That's what you are. You're a setup for a scene that happens when, and I'm going to throw to it, all right? His demise is in a dojo, and we don't get Freddy doing kung fu.
It's like
what
they
is going
ran out
on
of
with
budget.
this film? He gets killed by a glove on a fishing wire.
Yeah.
It's like,
you could have put Freddy in. You could have put Freddy in karate, had him in Bruce Lee's, jumpsuit, anything. Even if that was the entire gag. I mean, come on, you put him in sunglasses on the beach. You're already getting clown shoes with Freddy at this point. Just go for it by this point. Just go for it. Don't shortchange us on it. If you're going to torture us with bad Freddy humor, go for it.
And the humor ain't great with Freddy in this one.
It's really
especially
not.
Later on, there's a line that he delivers. He goes, "How sweet fresh meat,"
which is strangely like one of his. It's his most famous line, though.
But he delivers it so boringly deadpan in this. Like he was over it. But you know what? I don't want to slam it completely because we do see get some really cool Freddy stuff in this film too. And I'm going to defend the return of Freddy. Especially, I love the dog that pees fire, Jason.
The dog named Jason, by the way.
Yes.
First of all, who names their dog Jason? That's not a dog's name. Secondly, we can thank a very famous director for the scene, James Cameron. Because Rennie Harlan, the man who directed this movie and who would eventually become a very famous director in his own right, happened to run into James Cameron one day. And this is James Cameron before T2. So he wasn't like, James Cameron raising the bar. He wasn't doing anything like that. But Rennie Harlan told him, hey, we're making the next Friday the 3rd. We're making the next Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Ooh. And James Cameron said, well, how are you going to bring Freddy back this time? And Rennie Harlan, at a complete loss of words, said,
what's the no as well?
What's he doing?
How did he come back?
Anyway, just at a complete loss of words, Rennie Harlan said, I don't know, a dog's going to piss fire on him. And they put it in the movie, which I think is brilliant.
Makes no sense. And it is Kincaid. We should establish, as we know, it's Kincaid who goes back to that same car lot that we saw Freddy's demise in the 3rd film. and brings it back. And there's some really great little scenes of that as Kincaid is kind of running through. And I love how the cars are stopping it. And I especially love this shot, Jason, where they
it's
zoom
fantastic.
right up.
Yes,
And you get this giant scope that he's trapped in this universe car yard thing.
Yeah, if you notice, eventually it actually shows you like the entire planet is covered by this junkyard, and I think that's amazing. It was such a great visual, especially for 1988.
This scene is only topped by one other great visual, and that is the return of Freddy, which is clearly a reverse shot, but it is amazing. We've got his bones and we see his flesh and body reforming. I loved it, Jason. I loved it.
That inhale that Robert Englund does, that whole as it's happening, I just thought that's what sells it right there, because it is so visceral. It almost looks painful.
It does. And there's kind of a couple of insert shots where they do the eyes bit, where the kind of eyes grow back.
Oh, yeah.
And there's something about that looks so good. And it's prosthetic and practical effects, but man, that's why practical effects rock, because there's a tangibility to that scene that you just don't get in CGI. You just don't get. So big fan on that.
And as much as I hate that they killed off Joey and Kincaid.
Yeah, we're going to get to Joey in a sec.
Not Patricia Arquette. As much as I hate that, you have to admit, from Freddy's point of view, it's a smart move, because we always talk about, well, why doesn't the bad guy just kill them at the very beginning? He does, and we're complaining about it, because they're the biggest threat to him. So they're the first ones he goes after. And he's just like, yep, kill, done. And it's smart.
And what the other smart thing they do in the script, and it's going to sound hypocritical because I think there's some real big problems with this plot. But what is also really smart is the idea of using Alice as the vessel to bring in new victims for Freddy. I love that concept. Is to use her as basically bait. Which is
it's got some. This movie's got great concepts. It just does not execute them very well.
Yeah, it's poor execution, right?
They decide to make Freddy a clown because we all laughed at that line from Nightmare 3. We all laughed at the line. The studio executives thought, ooh, they're laughing. They like humor. Let's make more jokes.
Yep.
And now we have, Roach Motel joke. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. Yeah. There's a better one than that, but we'll get into that. Joey. Got to talk about Joey's death. Okay, so Kincaid's death, I didn't mind. I thought it was an interesting scene. It was functional to the plot. It was the return of Freddy. But the scene of Joey dying, I really didn't like, and really started to have some real logic problems with, where this film has a problem sometimes indicating to the audience what is the surreal dream world and what is the real world. And it kind of plays out in this particular scene where we have young Joey, or that's the end of Kincaid.
That's not Joey. There we go.
They have young Joey who's seeing the woman on his poster now in his waterbed. And that's the only shot I could use, Jason.
Yes. There's a couple of things that would violate YouTube's community guidelines.
So that's the best that I could do. Sorry, mate. But however, what happens to him is essentially, go back to it, is essentially he gets sucked under the waterbed by Freddy.
Well, obviously it's a suicide.
Yeah, think? Because that's how his mum finds him, dude.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. Within the rules of the movies that we've had so far, it makes no sense. It just...
the scene where they explained how it would happen in the real world with Kincaid, because we had the shot of the bedroom where the dog goes, "What's wrong?" and he just slumps over. He dies.
Yeah,
but in the dream world, he got stabbed.
They could have done something. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He magically transported inside of a waterbed mattress.
Like
what? I mean, they could have handled that in any number of ways. They could have just had the waterbed break and just have him drown or something. That would have been fine. But no, what it was that the waterbed prop that had the model in it was expensive, and they wanted to get mileage out of it. So they thought, just put Joey in it. It'll be a good shock scare. Which, I suppose it might have been, but everybody else is just like, how did that happen again? Could you
Well,
imagine
see,
the
this
mom
to
having
me,
to make
that
that
scene
police
is
report?
that scene is a key scene. Yes, imagine trying to explain that one away. A key scene where you're going, this film's in trouble already because of how
Yeah.
they're treating these. They're not legacy characters, but characters, the main characters from the previous film.
Well, in a sense, they are legacy characters because aside from Nancy, we've never seen another character return aside from
True.
Freddy, too, I guess.
True.
So yeah, I mean,
True.
they're every bit as legacy as Nancy is by this point.
Yeah. Now, I hope we don't get in trouble for YouTube for this one, but it is important I establish this shot. And smoking is disgusting. Never start smoking.
Yes, it
It's
is.
gross. It's disgusting. But however, we
Smoking
get that
kills,
shot.
and if you're killed, you lose a very important part of your life.
That's right. Well, that particular shot may not mean anything, but it does play out later. And it is actually the first clue into what an idea, a concept that I also like about this film. And that is the ability to absorb the powers, the dream powers of other individuals, which I really do enjoy. Now,
Kind of macabre.
well, the idea of it is to have one kind of super being in the end. Like, that's the idea, isn't it? Which is very indicative of the time of having, a woman's going to kick ass. This is the 80s. This is the era of where we actually had very strong female characters in action films, being kind of. And I think this is their attempt to kind of go in that direction. I'm not saying it was handled perfectly. I'm just saying in that time that we definitely had films like that. So, but that plays out over the whole film. But before then, obviously, we're going to get to the demise of, Kirsten. Like,
Yes.
this is horrible, Jason.
Awful.
This is awful. However, it is the setup for it I like. So the setup for it is, and I've kind of missed a couple of scenes. We'll go back to there. But we do get return of Mama from the third.
The worst mother in the history of anything ever.
She gets to come back.
Yeah.
And she is the cause of, in a way, of her daughter's demise because she drugs her, Jason. Like all good mothers do.
It's one of... I have a true story involving this movie. Whenever I was younger, we rented a bunch of scary movies, and one of them was Nightmare 4. And we're watching this, and my mother happens to be in the room with us. And at one point, she gives that line about, it's Freddy's banquet, and I'm on the menu. And my mom gets up and turns the TV off. And I thought it was because of the F word. And she goes, no, it was really bad. This is just a bad movie. She heard that one line and she was out. And not only that, she decided the rest of us were out too.
That's hilarious. So she wasn't like, this is disturbing. You shouldn't be watching it. No, guys, this sucks. This is good. Turn it off. I love that.
That's great. This sucks. We're not going to watch this anymore. I refuse to let my children be exposed to these terrible line readings. That's not Patricia Arquette.
No. Okay, let's do it, Jace. The beach scene. The beach scene. So they knock Kristen out.
The beach scene.
She now wakes up on a beach where we get our Jaws. Yes, we get Freddy gloves as shape as a fin. Now, that's bad enough. Right? That's bad enough. But then it's matched with this. Like, I don't have it, but cue the CSI music right now. Because Freddy is wearing... Exactly. Freddy is wearing sunnies at the beach. This is the low for me. This is a big low. This is like, oh no.
This is like watching Batman and Robin sky surf. Yes. That is what this is like.
Yes, the bat blades for their skate. However, and then we get into her demise, right? Because it doesn't happen there. She gets sucked through the beach down to was essentially a boiler room. Mind you, the guy lighting this film, right? The guy lighting this film, and you may not see it much in this scene, but if you notice, every boiler room shot, everything's lit the same color as his jumper. everything's green lit or it's red lit. And it makes it look like the Flash TV show from 1990. You know, if you remember that show that was all different color, extreme Dick Tracy type lighting. And it does in the boiler room. It's all green and red. It's just shockingly amateurish. However, the death of her, it's really quick. She just gets
so
thrown.
Funny. We talk about this movie being amateurish and terrible. This is actually the highest grossing Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's Nightmare's television show because it made so much money. So I mean, it's a weird thing. This is
I got
a bad movie, but it led to some good things.
It did, and it got my money a couple of times at the cinema. So, but you know, we evolve and change our taste. We're allowed to look back at it now, decades later, and go, "No, this was not good." But it is a film that is. I don't want to tar it as being a horrible film because there are some really good nuggets as we keep going along. But that's certainly the end of it. One of the little good nuggets, that's the first time of really fleshing this out, pardon the pun, is this scene where we're seeing the souls interacting with Freddy in his chest. We've got a snippet of it,
yes,
didn't we?
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's a big part of this film.
Yeah, but this is just a cool effect. Yeah.
It's really cool. Okay, the mirror, Jason. The motif of the mirror. So the motif is Alice is hiding herself from the world. And covering the mirror are all the photos of other people. But she can't be seen. And then bit by bit throughout the movie, the motif is she's pulling these things out and kind of discovering herself. At the time, I didn't pick it up, but I'm like, oh my God, how on the nose can this be? You know? It's pretty kind of bad. Including this particular shot, Jason, again,
it's
crosses
so
over to the real world, doesn't it? Because she's awake when she sees that. And I'm like, you're breaking your own rules. I don't care what rules you establish in a universe, Jason. Just keep within the rules. You make the rules. They can be whatever they are, but then you break them within the same film. It's bizarre.
It is. Basically, they're doing anything they can to appeal to the audience by this point, even if that means betraying what has come before. They know that this is going to get a rise out of the audience. They know it may get even a laugh because, of course, you know, welcome to prime time. We have to get these laughs in there somewhere, and so they're really overdoing it by this point. This is like, you know, it's like Star Trek V versus Star Trek IV. Star Trek IV introduced this really wonderful, lighthearted comedy, and then Star Trek V went with it and tried to one-up it and just became goofy and stupid, and nobody liked it.
I feel like this is kind of like, and it's kind of apt because it's the same number 4 of a movie. It's just, to me, reminds me of Rocky IV. It's all flash.
I never saw Rocky IV.
Oh, you haven't seen all the Rockies?
I have seen,
substance.
I don't know if I've seen any of the Rockies.
Oh, wow. Well, keep tuned to the Jason Roy Gaston channel because Jason does have a show called Jason Finally Watches. And between now and 2075, he will do Rocky at some point.
All right. I'm going to put that in my notes right now.
Yeah, there you go. The Rocky franchise.
Let me put it behind Halloween and Highlander.
Oh, Highlander. Skip number two. Now, let's talk about...
C number two. Gotcha.
Little Miss Urkel. Her death scene, kind of, as soon as we got there, I'm going, so what purpose did she serve except to be cannon fodder for Freddy? No.
She was a victim, but you got to admit it was a cool death scene. You got to admit it was a cool death scene.
Why? Because, where's the shot? Do I not have the shot? I thought I had the shot.
If you don't have a shot of this, we're done. We're over.
No,
I'm breaking
I'm going to load it up, keep talking, but she gets so... It's a really great practical effects scene. It really is.
It is. And so in case you don't know, while Jace is loading that, this young woman suffers from asthma. She falls asleep at the same time Lucy falls asleep, and Freddy appears in the dream world, walks over and says one of his clown shoe lines, "Let's suck face," and kisses her because Freddy does not believe in consent. There we go. And he basically sucks her to death.
Just
I got no other word for it. Basically sucks her to death.
It's great because you see her shrink up and again, it's the little things that I love with Robert Englund. And he did this in, I think, the last film. The way he had disregards for dead bodies, I love.
Yeah.
Because he just tosses that sack of skin on the
It's
floor.
great. It's
Complete
great.
disregard. So I really like that kill. That's definitely a highlight. And, one of the reasons I think this film's successful is the production value, man. Like, they spent money on this, and it really is on the screen, which is great.
Yeah. There is another bad line right after this as they're putting her dead body in the ambulance, which goes away with the sirens going, which I'm thinking, what's the emergency? But the Miss Hairdo says, who dies of an asthma attack? Lots of people die from asthma attacks. Lots of people.
Day. Yes.
Like, do you not pick up a magazine?
Thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that was absolutely horrible. Now the young brother who I liked, he actually had a couple of good scenes. The real cool kid and that. He actually has a nice line at some point when Alice is freaking out and she runs. This is just after the ambulance scene. And the guy goes, well, what, Mr. Wooden hunk of spunk.
It's the 37-year-old high school student, yes.
Yeah, 37-year-old high school student says, what are we going to do? And he goes, I don't know, man, but we're dropping like flies. And it was a nice delivery. And it felt good. Honest. It felt honest, and he runs to his sister. That's why I like him, because their relationship is rock solid throughout the film, which is kind of great. It is unfortunately then dealt with a pretty weird scene. His death. All right? His death is a combination of an elevator scene, which then gets absolutely chock-a-block full of cheerleaders. And you're thinking, well, okay, I can see where this dream may go. To him being in a dojo. And the biggest missed opportunity of this film in my mind.
Well, apparently they were going to film a more elaborate death scene for him that did involve karate and Freddy, but much to their horror, they did not have the money to do it. They actually ran out of money. So they had to truncate the scene. And it's a missed opportunity, and you can tell that it wasn't supposed to be filmed
by glove. Yeah, death by glove on fishing wire. It's really
it's not good.
It's
not good.
Meanwhile, these deaths are happening, right? We know we're starting to establish that Alice is having convulsions every time this is happening. And we're getting more and more indication that she's starting to absorb their dream skills, their dream powers, so anything, or their natural abilities, I suppose. It's another way to put it. Because of the death of the younger brother comes a skill set for her, which we get into later on.
She becomes nunchucky.
Dude, can you explain the funeral scene to me? Like, what is the purpose of having him come out of and saying it's okay and then climbing back in the coffin?
They have this weird thing going with Alice that they never really... I don't know. I don't know what they were going for. I don't know what the end game was, but they just kind of... They play with it a couple of times and then they forget it. Because there is the scene at the funeral. There's also the scene at the beginning of the movie whenever she sees Mr. Chin, Mr. 37-year-old high school freshman, and walks up to him. You are a hot hunk of man. And then it's like she was just but it's like her imagination runs wild.
Yeah, she did that with her father as well.
Yeah, they never do anything with it beyond that. I actually think the funeral is the last time that we see any of that. And I kept thinking this is going to come into play against Freddy at any point. It's going to be, I have this great imagination. Look, I now have 37 Uzis in each hand, and I'm going to No, it just goes away. It's like they lost interest in it.
To me, the film, and at this point, I'll be really honest, I think the film's a mess. At this point.
It's a huge mess.
It's like, what are they going to do here? How are they going to wrap this up? Because this is not working on any level. But I'm going to say there is some saving grace. And I think the film turns for the better basically from this uber cheesy scene. And that's her doing the nunchucks. I'll stand by it. It's not new. It's not original. In fact, it's kind of cringy. But from that moment on, we've added an extra dimension. The audience now knows this chick can have powers. And now she has actually got a fighting chance against Freddy. It, I think, injects a little bit of freshness into this movie when it really needed it. And so I appreciate that now the movie's starting to turn direction. What were your thoughts?
I will agree with the cheesiness. I honestly thought it was just a derivative retread of the last movie.
Yeah.
I think that they just traded out warriors for warrior, and it's the quickening.
Mm.
It's Highlander. I have seen the first Highlander, but that's what this reminded me of. It's the quickening. It's the quickening in the dream world.
Yeah.
But I will also agree the movie's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
It is, but at least I think this gives, even though it's not great, and I'm desperately trying to save the film in my own mind, I suppose, at the time. But I'm thinking, okay, we have a clear direction now. This movie turns into an action movie. All right? It's now Arnold Schwarzenegger versus, or sorry, it's Ripley or it's Sarah Connor versus Freddy. That's what they're kind of going for in this last.
That would be a fun movie.
It would be.
It would be great.
In fact, if you're out there, Hollywood, it would be amazing if they did a Freddy film. How's this for the time travel? Let's add an extra twist. Freddy's so upset that he's been mocked by these films, he goes back in time and starts to kill off famous filmmakers. I would love to see that. You start to see him in the middle of The Godfather, just hacking up in the wedding scene, and then we'll cut to him in Out of Africa. And he's slitting Meryl Streep's throat or something.
Yes.
I don't know. They're not paying me to write.
Well, he could go full circle and go kill Wes Craven.
Yes.
Man, Freddy, no, it's me, Wes. I've been craving this.
That's it.
Jesus, why did I say that?
All right, so we're moving on now. I particularly like this scene. Do you know what this is from, this screenshot?
This is from the movie scene. Yeah, whenever she's getting sucked into the movie screen. I did like that scene. Although I will say, what movie theater plays those kind of movies? Honestly, even back in the 80s, I never walked into a movie theater and saw movies that old. Ever.
No. It's definitely a
and
trope.
Even if they did exist, what teenagers would go there?
Exactly.
Teenagers don't go see anything.
You just wouldn't.
You know, if it's older than 5 years old, they don't go see it.
Exactly. However, the film is really fun here. I'm going to stand by it because I love this theater thing. I think it's a great effect how they do that, and it looks really great when she goes through the screen. I watched that a couple of times. That smooth movement, really great opticals on that one. So remember, this is all pre-computer stuff. Very, very nice. No, the film goes full surreal mode right at this point, don't we? We don't know what's the real world. You talked about the time loop earlier. We're getting into that space of the film now where everything is up for question. You really can't trust anything at this point, whether it's the real world or the fake world. And I kind of like that, you know?
Yeah.
And the actress who plays Alice, I'm going to give it to her because she really did play the meek little character in the beginning. We see a different character at this point.
Yes.
She sells that for me, that she's got all these extra, souls in her as such.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her in this movie. And I enjoyed this part too, because honestly, this is something that I would have nightmares about.
Seeing your old self serving your pizza. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I hear that. No, it is really great. And it was a good little bit of makeup with that too. But really the best part of this scene is Freddy with the pizza. And Freddy stabbing her brother's head and eating it because it was her brother he stabs.
Yeah. Oh, you little meatball.
Oh, you little meatball.
Just cringe humor. Just absolute cringe humor.
But you see this close-up of the pizza, and you see these faces pushing through it, and you're going, that's a cool effect. Now, think about the practicality of that, Jason. Huge sound stage, this giant pizza on a platform. You've got all these actors getting up underneath it. Now, push. You've got a guy up giant crane just to make it look like a pizza sitting on a bench top. I love Hollywood.
This is why we didn't get the Freddy karate fight.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, we spent all of our budget on pizza. How many pizzas? One pizza.
Because look at it in scale. That's the only way you could have done it, right? Like, at some point, there's been a big construction somewhere to make that happen. But well worth it because I think it
I thought it was a great effect.
As F.
Terrible humor, but a great set piece.
Oh, you know what other really cool effect is my favorite perm girl, perm hair.
Mm-hmm.
Her whole demise Like the end of it sucks, but the actual transition to that point is awesome. And that is the weightlifting scene. And kind of like very John Carpenter, the thing, like the body horror of this moment, her arms folding back.
This actually has my favorite Freddy quip in the entire movie. Because to me, it is sinister, and it is actually a little funny, but it's more evil than funny. And that's whenever he's spotting her basically, as she looks up at him and says, I don't believe in you. And he just looks at her and goes, I believe in you. And that was a good line. From the way it was written to the way that Robert Englund delivered it. It was a great line. But yes, the body horror, the bone snapping, excellent.
And then we go now into Cronenberg territory while getting the kind of the fly kind of mutation.
I would say it's more Kafka than anything else.
Maybe, correct, yeah. Absolutely. But that horrible ending to her where you realize that she's actually in a roach motel and there's Freddy looking in. I can't remember the quip. I don't want to remember
He says, the quip. You can check in, but you can't check out. Squish. He delivered that
came out of that little bug.
Yeah. Well, he delivered a corporate tagline. He literally delivered, I think it was Raid was using it at the time, or not Black & Decker, Black Flag was using it at the time. But it was an actual tagline for an actual product. And nowadays it would be roasted for product placement.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised they didn't have Hotel California playing in the background of that scene. Because that's one of the big lines in that, isn't it? Yeah. Now we're moving on to Freddy. Freddy ready to fight. Like, come on, bring it on to Alice. Because Alice is like jacked. She's loaded up. She's got her brother's bandana around her fist ready. She's ready. And so it's on, isn't it? It's a fight for young and old inside the most colourful church ever created.
It is quite the Technicolor marvel, I will say, but only greens, only shades of greens and reds, because again, the director and the lighting guy were hacks.
They were.
Looks like Christmas.
Rennie Harlan has had an interesting career, and this is one of his first Hollywood films. But he did start to make some great films there, and then kind of fell off. But here you could tell with that church scene, though, dude, and that fight, which is all very close-up fight shots, her doing flips and things like that. You could tell that this was definitely a budget issue as well, because it felt very claustrophobic. And clearly they paid the special effects guys, though, because the end of this scene, one of the great practical effects is the souls escaping Freddy.
Yes, that was really good. And of course you get more nudity in there too, which is what they're going for. And he has killed a lot of people, by the way.
Yeah, but it's just so, and it's hard to see, but it's so, you see arms coming out of the back of his head and out of his chest, and it's all because he gets to see his own reflection, correct?
Just like Mumra from Thundercats.
Mm-hmm. And also like the motif playing through the whole film about her not being able to see herself in the mirror and finally be able to see herself, and Freddy seeing himself as actually his own demise. Yes. Like, come on, guys. Hey, come up with a better motif next time, please.
Please, or just don't. Just don't even bother.
Just don't, right? Now, when we have an end of a Nightmare on Elm Street film, right? And this is clearly the end. Freddy's Gornsky again, all right? We always have an end scene that is still in the dream world, don't we? Or that's the scene that's supposed to question whether are we in the real world or are we in the dream world? You know, in the first one, it's the mother getting sucked through the doorway, you know, in the Freddy Mobile. Can't remember what the second one's the back in the bus. The third one, what was that one? There wasn't for the third one.
There wasn't. It was the nun. The nun, yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the end.
Should have been.
Here, however, we have 37-year-old high school student. He makes it through. And And then we have young Alistair in white. Remember, they're in light clothes. Everything is awesome. Clearly,
Yes.
it's supposed to be the real world. She sees the reflection of Freddy in the fountain, and then
But
doesn't freak out.
are we really following any kind of rules at this point, or is it just let's just throw things at the screen and see what sticks?
Oh, you know what we didn't really talk about before we close this up? Sorry, I want to go back to it. The time loop, because the time loop's a great scene.
The time loop was great, and I'm going to tell you exactly what sells the time loop. It's the musical score. Because the musical score, whenever she runs up to a 37-year-old jawline, there's this very distinctive piano score being played because it almost sounds out of place. But they did that on purpose, and I think it was a really good thing because whenever they repeat the loop, they do that piano score again. And then they do it again, and it's just kind of da 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 da. And I love that. I love the way the score is playing with that time loop as well. There's actually, even though this movie is a mess, there is a lot to celebrate about the ending. The fact that Captain Jawline ends up in the hospital and in danger of meeting Freddy because they have to put him under to do surgery that will save him. That was clever. I like the fact that they had to pull him out, and of course that takes away her only ally in the dream world. I loved that whole dynamic there.
You know what I love? I love practical effects. And there's a scene in that time loop with that red truck in the middle of the road.
Oh my gosh, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Folds in on itself with nothing in there so he's like, it's obviously between a parallel between what's happening in the dream world and what's happening in the real world. But seeing that even today and going, wow, that is a great effect. And I would love to know how they executed that. It's clearly something in the car that makes it crumple. But wow, killer move. So the big winner of this film is the effects, right?
Absolutely.
think that's what saves it from being, frankly, one of the worst ones in the series. You know?
Yes.
And a great last 20 minutes, I think. Good 20 minutes.
It does. I don't know. It's like this movie falls apart and then pulls itself back together at the end. So I would not call Nightmare 4 a bad movie. It has some good parts, and it has some strengths that we've seen in the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but you do start to see chinks in the armor by this point. And you get to see some major chinks in the armor, and they only get worse from here.
Is this the second part of a trilogy in this franchise? Because it is connected to the Dream Child.
It is connected to the Dream Child, but
I don't think 6 is connected to 5.
No, it's completely different. Yeah.
No, so this is kind of like the second part of a internal trilogy within the franchise itself, I would say.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, there you go. That was Nightmare on Elm Street for a Dream Master. We'll be back with, well, the next one on the list is The Dream Child, which I don't think I've seen since 1989. And I do believe, Jason, they pumped that thing out a year later, didn't they?
They did, yes.
It was really quick, that one out to theaters.
This Nightmare 4 made a ton of money. Nightmare 5 didn't. And so they thought, well, let's kill off Freddy. Maybe that'll give us some money.
And
funny how
let's add
corporate
3D
Hollywood works.
Glasses to it.
Oh, yes, in 3D.
And you know what the thing is? I want to find the version, and I don't know, because I haven't watched it yet, whether the version I have actually says it's time to put your glasses on. Because do you remember that in the cinema? Like,
I didn't see it in cinema.
Oh, and the film literally would have a card come up on the screen going, now it's time to put your glasses on. So, yeah, just like that. That's the way to do it. Can I do that too? I think my glasses.
I don't know. I've never noticed my glasses do this before.
I don't know either. Anyway, it would be hilarious. It's like Top Secret. You pull away the glasses and your eyes are actually there.
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie.
Cushing.
One day
Absolutely.
on the VHS Vault, I would love to do Top Secret.
What's stopping us? We don't have the wheel
Nothing.
anymore. What's stopping us? Let's do it.
Nothing is stopping
Let's
us.
do it.
You know what is? You know what we do need? We need somebody to let us know. Send in the comments down below films that you want us to review. Yes, we're doing horror films now, but we'll do anything we'll do. All right, except it's got to be within the bounds of taste, and it's got to be in English. Sorry. So
well, you know, we did have a request some time ago, and my girls never did pick it, but I neglected to have my girls pick a movie this week. So we're just let's go with the movie that they did not pick last time. Robot Jocks.
Robot Jocks. We're doing
Robot Jocks.
Okay, that's the one we'll be doing next. I cannot
remember who suggested that one, but we'll thank you.
We'll
on
go
the next
back
episode.
through the archives.
Yep, definitely.
We're old, dysfunctional. We can't remember things. I didn't even know
everything here is half-assed. They should know it by now.
That's why we're so awesome. All right, guys. That's been VHS Vault. Check us out next time on the video. And don't forget to go back and look at the back catalogue, right, Jace? There is so much stuff being pumped out there, including the first Nightmare on Elm Street as part of the old show. And there's still some more to come out in that space as well. So until next time on the VHS Vault, this has been VHS Jace. That has been Jason Roy Gaston. And we'll see you guys next time. Yep, she'll be right. I really struggled watching that one.
Yeah, but you know the good thing is it's only 15 seconds long and the kangaroo's kind of cute.
Oh, yeah, I've had to watch that. No, I was talking about the film. That was a tough one.
Oh, yeah, the film was not good.
Well, let's hope the audience out there who are listening to this right now will put us through some more suffering and suggest some horrible films for us to watch.
Well, look on the bright side. At least part 5 has got to be better, right?